The three Valorian ships hung in Earth's orbit, their smooth silver hulls reflecting the blue planet below. Inside the lead vessel, Captain June stood before the main viewing screen, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the tiny blue world. "Fascinating," he said. "So much water on one planet." His science officer, Miri, floated beside him. The Valorians had evolved in low gravity, their bodies tall and slender with skin that shimmered like polished metal. "The humans use only a small part of their world," she said. "Most of them live on the dry parts, though they began in the oceans, like us." Captain June nodded. The High Council chose well. These humans seemed peaceful enough for first contact. For 6 months, the Valorian ships had watched Earth from a distance. They had studied human broadcasts, learned their main languages, and mapped their cities. Today was to be the day they would finally reveal themselves and welcome humans to the galactic community. But as Captain June prepared to send the first message, alarms blared across the bridge. "Captain," called the sensor officer. Massive energy spike from the human star. On the screen, a huge flare erupted from the sun, bigger than any the Valorians had seen before. It raced toward Earth like a fiery hand. "Will their magnetic field protect them?" asked June. Miri checked her data. "No, this is too strong. Their communication systems will fail first, then power grids. It will cause great damage." Captain June watched as the solar storm hit Earth's atmosphere. Bright auroras spread from the poles toward the equator. Below, city lights began to wink out one by one. "We should help them," said a young officer. "No," said June firmly. "The first protocol is clear. We observe only. We cannot interfere with a developing world, even in crisis." "But Captain—" "I understand your feelings," said June. "But we know nothing about how humans handle disaster. This is a chance to learn about them. Miri, focus our sensors on their largest cities. Record everything." In Seoul, Dr. Taeho Kim was working late at the National Disaster Response Center when the computers suddenly went dark. The backup generators kicked in moments later, but the main screens stayed blank. "What's happening?" he asked, turning to his assistant. "Everything is down, sir," said Han, typing frantically. "Not just here. Reports coming in from across the country. All communications, all power grids." Taeho looked out the window. The entire city had gone dark except for a few buildings with emergency power. Above, strange green and purple lights danced in the sky. "Auroras, this far south." "Solar storm," he said quietly. "A big one." "Sir, the satellite phones aren't working either. Neither are radios. It's like we've gone back 100 years overnight." Taeho thought quickly. Without electronic communications, coordination would be almost impossible. But they had prepared for this. He walked to a cabinet and pulled out a stack of paper forms. "Get the bicycle messengers ready," he said. "We're implementing Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was the plan no one thought they would ever need, how to manage a disaster without any modern technology." As Han rushed to obey, Taeho caught a glimpse of something in the sky through the window. For just a moment, he thought he saw a silver shape moving among the auroras. Not an airplane. Something else. But he had no time to wonder about it now. In the small coastal town of Haenim, Mayor Sungmin was organizing fishing boats when the world went dark. The boats in the harbor still worked, their simple engines unaffected, but nothing else did. "Everyone stay calm," he called out to the crowd gathering at the docks. "This is just a blackout." But Sungmin knew it was more than that. No phones, no radios, and those strange lights in the sky. Something big had happened. An old fisherman named Dae tugged at his sleeve. "Mayor, I've seen this before. The lights, I mean. My grandfather told stories of when this happened long ago. He said it froze the telegraph wires and started fires in the offices. A solar storm," said Sungmin, "but much worse than usual." He looked at the fishing fleet, 20 boats, sturdy and seaworthy. Then he looked at the town, already growing cold as heating systems failed. "Dad, I need your boats," he said, "and I need brave people to sail them." Aboard the Valorian ship, Captain June watched with growing interest. All across the planet, lights had gone out. Their sensors detected failing power systems and rising temperatures in the atmosphere. "By all logic, there should be panic," said Miri. "But look." The sensors showed humans gathering in groups. In some places, they were setting up shelters. In others, they were starting fires for warmth or cooking. "No central command," noted June. "No hive mind like ours." Yet they organized quickly. "Captain," called a junior officer. "Ship 3 reports engine trouble. They're losing altitude." June turned sharply. "Tell them to abandon if necessary. We can pick up the crew." But it was too late. On the screen, they watched as the smallest of their 3 ships began to fall toward Earth, its engines flickering and dying. "Track it," ordered June. "Where will it land?" "Southern part of the Korean peninsula," said the navigation officer, "near a city called Busan." "Any chance of reaching uninhabited area?" "No, Captain, but they can aim for the outskirts, minimize casualties." June's 4 eyes closed briefly in resignation. "So our first contact will be a crash landing." Not what the council planned. In Busan, firefighter Jisoo was helping evacuate an apartment building when she saw the falling star. It wasn't like any meteor she had ever seen. It moved too slowly and seemed to change direction slightly. "Look," shouted one of her team. "It's going to hit near the old factory district." Jisoo grabbed her equipment. "Kim, Park, with me. The rest of you, finish the evacuation." They took the fire truck, its siren useless in the powerless city, and drove toward where the object seemed to be heading. As they rounded a corner, they saw it hit, not with a massive explosion, but with a strange, slow-motion crash that tore up a half-kilometer of empty fields before stopping. What remained wasn't a meteor. It was a ship, like nothing made on Earth. "Call for backup," Jisoo said automatically, then remembered. "No phones. Park, run back to the station. Tell them what we found. Kim, help me set up a perimeter." As they worked, the side of the ship began to glow. Jisoo watched in amazement as a section of the hull simply disappeared, and something emerged from inside. The creatures were tall and thin, with skin like polished chrome and large, multi-lidded eyes. 2 of them carried a third, which appeared injured. Jisoo didn't hesitate. She grabbed her medical kit and ran toward them, hands raised to show she carried no weapons. "They need help," she called to Kim. "Come on." From orbit, Captain June watched the scene with disbelief. "They're helping our crew," he said. "They have no idea who we are, what we are, and their first instinct is to help." "It could be a trap," suggested an officer. "No," said Miri, studying the sensor readings. "The human female approaching the ship, her body shows signs of elevated heart rate and stress hormones, but no aggression markers. She's afraid, but she's still going to help." June made a decision. "Send a message to our crew. Tell them to accept the human's assistance. And," he paused, breaking with centuries of protocol, "tell them they may share basic medical information if needed to treat their injuries." As the crew watched, the human firefighters and the Valorian survivors began a careful, cautious interaction, the first official contact between their species. "High Commander Ren must be informed," said Miri. "Yes," agreed June. "But first, let's see how these humans handle a ship full of aliens while their world is falling apart around them. I suspect we may learn something important today." On the planet below, as the solar storm continued to ravage Earth's infrastructure, humanity was about to face its greatest challenge and show its greatest strength. 2 weeks after the solar flare, Earth had changed. Without electricity or modern communications, cities had become strange, quiet places. People gathered around fires at night. They walked or rode bicycles during the day. They shared food and information by word of mouth. High Commander Ren arrived from the Valorian homeworld to take charge of the observation mission. His ship was larger than Captain June's, with golden panels that shifted and moved like living things. "Show me everything," Ren ordered as soon as he boarded June's vessel. Captain June led him to the main observation room, where wall-to-wall screens showed different parts of Earth. Some focused on big cities. Others showed small towns or rural areas. One screen showed the crash site near Busan, where the Valorian survivors now lived in a camp with humans. "This defies all our predictions," said June. "We expected chaos, fighting over resources. But look." He pointed to a screen showing Seoul. People moved through the streets in organized groups. They carried water, food, and medicine to central points where others distributed them fairly. "They have no central mind link," said June. "No shared consciousness like we do. Yet somehow, they coordinate." High Commander Ren watched silently. His 6 eyes, more than the normal 4, marked him as a leader bred for greater perception. "Show me the crash site again," he said. The screen changed to show the area around the fallen Valorian ship. Humans had built simple shelters nearby. They worked alongside the stranded Valorians, using hand tools to repair what they could of the ship. "Our crew reports that humans ask many questions," said June. "They want to understand our technology, our biology, everything about us." "Dangerous," said Ren. "They could use this knowledge against other humans, or against us." "But they haven't," replied June. "Instead, they share what they learn with others. They have a concept they call open source, knowledge that belongs to everyone." Ren made a gesture of disbelief, his long fingers spreading wide. "This goes against everything we know about pre-unified species. They should be fighting for advantage." "Perhaps we should look more closely at their history," suggested June. "They've faced disasters before." In the small coastal town of Haenim, Mayor Sung Min watched as the fishing fleet returned. 10 boats had left yesterday, heading for isolated islands where people might need help. All 10 came back loaded with passengers, families from the islands who had run out of food. "We found them just in time," said old Dai as he helped a thin woman off his boat. "Another day, and the children would have been too weak to travel." Sung Min nodded. "Get them to the school building. We've set up cots there." As the island families moved toward the school, Sung Min noticed a group of rough-looking men watching from nearby. They had arrived 3 days ago, claiming to be travelers from the north. But Sung Min didn't trust them. They took food but did little work, and they asked too many questions about the fishing boats. That night, as most of the town slept, Sung Min stayed awake. He sat in darkness near the harbor, watching. Around midnight, he saw what he feared: the strangers, moving silently toward the boats. He was about to call for help when old Day appeared beside him, carrying a fishing spear. "I saw them too," whispered Da. "Pirates, just as we thought." More shapes emerged from the darkness: fishermen, shopkeepers, even some of the women who worked in the market. All carried tools or fishing gear that could serve as weapons. The strangers, now at the boats, began to untie them from the dock. That's when Sung Min stood up. "Those don't belong to you," he called out. The lead stranger turned, a knife glinting in his hand. "There's more of us than you think, old man. Back away if you want to live." "Count again," said Sung Min. All around the harbor, people stepped out of shadows. 30, 40, 50 townspeople. Some had made torches, which they now lit. The strangers found themselves surrounded by light and angry faces. "You have a choice," said Sung Min. "Leave now or help us. We need workers more than we need thieves." From orbit, the Valorians watched the scene with fascination. "They organized a defense without any communication technologies," said Miri. "How?" "They know each other," said June. "They anticipated the threat based on past experience and prepared for it without needing direct orders." High Commander Ren studied the images. "Show me more examples of this behavior." For hours, they watched scenes from across the planet. In a city in what humans called Europe, People created a human chain to deliver supplies up many flights of stairs in tall buildings. In another place, they set up signal fires on hills to pass messages over long distances. They adapt, said Wren, faster than any species we've encountered. And they remember, added June. They're using techniques from their past, before their technology. Wren turned to Miri. What about the crash site? Show me the human female who first approached our people. In Busan, Jisoo had become the unofficial liaison between humans and the Valorians. She couldn't understand their language, but she had learned to communicate with gestures and drawings. Today, she brought engineer Do Yeon to the crash site. Do Yeon had worked on ships before the blackout. She believed she might help repair the alien vessel. This is like nothing I've ever seen, said Do Yeon, examining the damaged hull. But some principles must be universal. One of the Valorians, whom Jisoo had named Silver for his particularly shiny skin, watched them curiously. When Du Yen began to sketch ideas in the dirt, Silver joined her. He drew different shapes, correcting her when she misunderstood. By sunset, Du Yun had assembled a team of mechanics, engineers, and metalworkers from the city. They brought hand tools and materials salvaged from abandoned factories. We'll start tomorrow, she told Jisoo. Silver seems to think we can help them repair the ship enough to reach their friends in orbit. Jisoo looked up at the night sky, wondering if the aliens were watching. Do you think there are more of them up there? And if so, why don't they help their friends? Du Yun shrugged. Maybe they can't, or maybe they're afraid of us. Afraid? Of humans? Why would they fear us when they have such advanced technology? Sometimes, said Du Yun, it's not about technology. It's about what you'll do with it. Maybe they're watching to see what kind of people we are. Aboard the command ship, High Commander Ren called for a council meeting. Captain June and the other ship captains gathered in the circular chamber. The council demands a decision, said Ren. Do we intervene to help the humans, or do we remain observers only? We should help them, said June. They've shown themselves to be peaceful and cooperative. They've shown that during this crisis, countered another captain. But their history contains much violence. If we give them our technology, what will they do with it once the crisis passes? Miri, who had been invited to present scientific findings, spoke up. There's something else to consider. Our sensors detect increasing atmospheric disturbance. The solar storm damaged Earth's protective layers more than we initially calculated. Meaning what? Asked Ren. Meaning that within another month, surface temperatures will drop significantly. Their food production will fail. Many will die. The chamber fell silent. So the question before us is not just about contact, said Ren slowly. It's about whether we let an intelligent species suffer a mass extinction event when we could prevent it. There's another option, said June. Our crashed ship. The humans are trying to repair it, working alongside our stranded crew. What if we didn't interfere with that cooperation? What if we let the humans learn just enough to help themselves? Ren's 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he considered. A middle path. Not full intervention, but not pure observation either. He turned to Miri. Can they succeed? Do these humans have the capability to understand our technology quickly enough to save themselves? Miri hesitated. By our normal calculations, no. Their science is too primitive. But she called up images of Do Yun working with Silver, their hands shaping designs in the dirt. They don't approach problems as we do. They make intuitive leaps. They try things that have a low probability of success. And sometimes, those attempts work anyway. We will continue to watch, decided Ren. But I want more information on these humans, especially the ones at the crash site. I want to understand how they think. As the meeting ended, Captain June lingered behind with Ren. There's one more thing you should know, High Commander, said June. One of our observation drones captured something unexpected yesterday. In a remote area, a human child was trapped on a frozen lake. The ice was breaking. Other humans formed a chain, lying flat to distribute their weight, to reach the child. Cooperation. We've seen this before, said Ren. Yes, but this was different. The last human in the chain, the one who reached the child, fell through the ice. He did not resurface. He failed. No, High Commander. He passed the child to safety before he sank. He sacrificed himself. Knowingly. Our sensors detected that he understood the risk before he acted. Ren was silent for a long moment. Show me more examples of this behavior, he finally said. I need to understand if this is an aberration or a pattern. Below them, Earth continued to grow colder as humans faced their greatest test. 1 month after the solar flare, winter came early to Earth. Snow fell even in places that were usually warm. Rivers and lakes froze. The sky stayed dark with thick clouds that trapped the cold but blocked the sun's warmth. In Seoul, Dr. Tae-ho Kim faced a difficult choice. The city's food supplies were running dangerously low. The huge sports stadium, now housing 50,000 people, had only enough food for 3 more days. We must reduce rations again, said Han, his assistant. Tae-ho shook his head. We've already cut them twice. People are hungry. Some are getting sick from weakness. Then what do we do? Tae-ho looked out at the snow falling outside his window. Gather the community leaders. I have an idea, but I need everyone to agree. That evening, 500 people met in the center of the stadium. They were the leaders of different neighborhoods, buildings, and groups. Tae-ho stood on a makeshift stage, his breath visible in the cold air. We face a food shortage, he announced. At current rations, we have food for 3 more days. After that, he didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what would happen. A murmur of fear ran through the crowd. A woman called out, "What about the government food reserves?" "We're using them now," said Tae-ho. "There's nothing left in the city. We've sent messengers to other regions, but they face the same problems." "So we're going to starve," said an old man bitterly. "No," said Tae-ho firmly. "We're going to share what we have differently." He explained his plan. The strongest adults would eat only once every 2 days. This would save enough food for children, the elderly, and the sick to eat every day until help could arrive. "You're asking half of us to go hungry so others can eat," said a young man. "Yes," said Tae-ho simply. "I'll be first. I won't eat tomorrow." There was silence. Then Han stepped forward. "I won't eat tomorrow either." One by one, others joined them. By the end of the meeting, 300 people had volunteered to skip meals. From orbit, the Valorians watched in disbelief. "They're volunteering to starve," said Miri. "This contradicts all survival instincts." "No," said Captain June thoughtfully. "They're not volunteering to starve. They're volunteering to hunger so that others won't starve. There's a difference." High Commander Ren had been silent, watching the scene in the stadium with all 6 eyes focused intently. This behavior, it reminds me of something from our own distant past, before we developed the collective consciousness. "What is it, High Commander?" asked June. "The legend of the first winter," said Ren. "When our world grew cold and food became scarce, our ancestors were not yet unified in mind. They competed for resources, as most pre-unified species do. What happened? One group chose to share equally, even when it meant some would not survive. They believed preserving their young was more important than individual survival." Ren's voice had taken on a rhythm, as if reciting an ancient story. "We thought this was unique to our kind, a first step toward unification. But these humans, they never unify their minds," said June. "Yet they act as if they share a connection." "Perhaps they do," said Ren, "just not one we can detect." In Busan, the work on the crashed alien ship was not going well. Despite Du Yun's best efforts, the damage was too severe. Parts they needed weren't available on Earth. Tools they had weren't precise enough. "We need to try something else," she told Jisoo one evening. They sat around a fire with Silver and 2 other Valorians. The aliens had learned some basic human words, and the humans had learned a few Valorian gestures. Silver made a series of hand movements, then spoke carefully. Ship. Broken. Too broken. I know, said Du Yun. But what if we don't try to fix the ship? What if we just fix the talking part? She pointed to what she thought was the ship's communication system. Silver's large eyes blinked rapidly. Talk to big ship. Yes, said Du Yun. If we can't go to your friends, maybe we can ask them to come to us. Silver and the other aliens had a rapid conversation in their own language. Then Silver turned back to Du Yun. Yes, we try. For the next 3 days, Du Yun and a team of radio technicians worked with the Valorians. They stripped parts from old radios and satellites. They built a new device that connected to the ship's systems. On the 4th day, Silver made the connection. The device hummed and glowed. Strange sounds came from it, clicks and whistles that the humans couldn't understand. But the Valorians grew excited. It works, said Jisoo. They're talking to their people. But Silver's next words dampened their excitement. Big ship says, can't help. Rules. He made a gesture that Jisoo had learned meant forbidden or not allowed. They won't help us? Asked Du Yun in disbelief. Even though they know we're all going to freeze or starve. Silver looked troubled. They'd watching. Learning. Not sure about humans. Not sure about us. Jisoo was angry now. What are they afraid of? That we'll attack them with our sticks and stones, while they sit safely in orbit with their advanced technology. Silver couldn't answer, but his posture showed shame. Aboard the command ship, the debate had grown heated. We have to help them, insisted Captain June. They're dying down there. The council forbids it, said Ren, though his voice lacked conviction. We cannot interfere with the species' natural development. There's nothing natural about this. June pointed to the displays showing Earth's deteriorating atmosphere. The damage is far worse than it should be for a flare of that size. Something is wrong. Miri, who had been analyzing data in silence, suddenly looked up. Captain June is right. I've been comparing the solar flare to our historical records. This pattern doesn't match any natural phenomenon we've ever recorded. What are you saying? Asked Ren. I'm saying the flare may not have been natural. The energy signature has similarities to the aftermath of certain weapons tests. The chamber went completely silent. You're suggesting someone attacked Earth. Ren's voice was barely audible. Not necessarily a direct attack, said Miri carefully, but perhaps a test of a solar manipulation weapon. The effects we're seeing are too precise, too targeted at their infrastructure. June turned to Ren. If this is true, then our non-interference protocol doesn't apply. Someone has already interfered. We would simply be countering that interference. Ren paced the chamber, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly as he thought. We need more information. If another species is testing weapons by using them on pre-contact worlds, the Council must know. By the time we inform the Council and receive instructions, many humans will have died, said June. I'm aware, said Ren sharply, but we cannot act without confirmation. He turned to Miri. Continue your analysis. Find me proof. As Miri left, Ren spoke privately to June. I need you to make contact with the humans at the crash site, unofficially. Learn everything you can about how they've been responding to this crisis across their world. You're authorizing direct contact. June couldn't hide his surprise. No, I'm looking the other way while you gather vital information that may save lives. There's a difference. Ren's use of June's own words from earlier was not lost on the captain. I understand, High Commander. And June, Ren added as the captain turned to leave, choose your contact carefully. We need someone who can understand what we're facing. Someone who represents the best of what we've seen in these humans. As night fell over Busan, Jisoo sat alone by the remains of the Valorian ship. The repair work had stopped. There seemed no point now that they knew the aliens in orbit wouldn't help. She heard footsteps and looked up, expecting to see Du Yun or one of the workers. Instead, A tall, slender figure with metallic skin approached, not silver, but someone she hadn't seen before. His eyes, 4 of them, seemed to glow slightly in the darkness. "You are Jisoo," he said in perfect Korean. She jumped to her feet. "How do you know my name? How are you speaking our language?" "I've been learning it. My name is June. I'm the captain of one of the ships in orbit." Jisoo felt anger rise in her. "You've been watching us suffer and doing nothing." "Yes," said June simply. "And I'm sorry for that. But things have changed. We need your help now." "Our help?" Jisoo laughed bitterly. "What could we possibly do for you?" "Help us understand something important," said June. "We believe the solar flare that struck your world wasn't an accident. Someone may have caused it deliberately." Jisoo stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "Who would do that? Why?" "That's what we need to find out," said June. "And we don't have much time." Jisoo stared at Captain June, trying to understand what he was saying. Someone caused the solar flare. Who would do such a thing? "We don't know yet," said June. "But we need to find out quickly. More flares are coming, and the next one will be worse." Jisoo felt cold that had nothing to do with the winter air. "How much worse?" "It could destroy all life on your planet." Jisoo sat down heavily on a piece of the crashed ship. "Why are you telling me this? Why not talk to our leaders?" "There's no time to convince your leaders we're real," said June. "And we need someone who has seen both sides, human and Valorian. Someone who didn't hesitate to help strangers, even when they looked nothing like you." Jisoo looked up at the sky. "What do you need me to do?" "First, help me gather others. The engineer who worked on our ship, the doctor from Seoul who found a way to share food, the mayor who organized the fishing boats. We need humans who solve problems in ways we don't understand." 3 days later, a strange group gathered at the crash site. Do-yeon, the engineer, had come immediately when Jisoo called. Dr. Taho Kim had arrived yesterday, tired from his long journey from Seoul. Mayor Sung-min had been the last to join them, bringing fish and other food that was desperately needed. Now they all sat in a makeshift shelter, facing Captain June and Miri, who had come down from the ships in orbit. "We believe the solar flare was caused by a species called the Krozak," Miri explained. "They live in a nearby star system. They'd been watching Earth for many years." "Why would they attack us?" asked Taho. "We've never even heard of them." "They fear you," said June simply. "Fear us?" Sung-min laughed. "Look at us. We can barely survive winter. You have ships that travel between stars. Why would anyone fear humans?" Miri projected an image onto the wall of the shelter. It showed a chart with various alien species, their technologies and behaviors. "When we find new intelligent species, we study them," she said. "We look for patterns. Most follow predictable paths. As they develop technology, they either learn to cooperate or they destroy themselves." "And where do humans fit?" asked Do-yeon. "Nowhere," said June. "You're unpredictable. Your history is full of both terrible violence and remarkable cooperation. You fight endless wars, yet you risk yourselves to save strangers. You compete fiercely, yet you give away food when you're hungry." "The Krozak believe unpredictable species are dangerous," added Miri. "They wanted to eliminate you before you developed space travel." The humans were silent, trying to absorb this information. "So what do we do now?" asked Jisoo finally. "How do we stop them?" "We don't know if we can," said June. "Our scans show they're preparing another, larger flare. It will hit Earth in 7 days." "Can't your people stop them?" asked Taho. "You have advanced technology." "We're peaceful observers," said Miri. "We don't have weapons. And even if we did, direct conflict between species is forbidden by our laws. So you'll just watch us die?" Sung-min's voice was angry now. "No," said June firmly. "We're going to help you. But we need to find a solution that doesn't break our most important laws." Do-yeon, who had been quietly studying the images Miri had shown, suddenly spoke up. What about a shield? Could we block the flare somehow? Miri looked surprised. That's not impossible, but we would need many ships positioned perfectly. We only have 3. What about the crashed ship? Asked Du Yun. Could we use parts from it? The shield generators are intact, admitted Miri, but they're not powerful enough alone. What if we boosted them? Du Yun was getting excited now. You said the flare affects our atmosphere, right? What if we positioned your shield generators at key points around the planet, then used our own power sources to amplify them? June and Miri exchanged looks. It could work, said Miri slowly, but we would need to coordinate perfectly, and the human power sources would need to be connected at exactly the right moment. We can do that, said Taiho. We still have bicycle messengers, runners, signal fires. We can spread the word. And we have boats, added Sungmin. We can position people on islands along the coasts. Jisoo watched as the plan took shape, humans and Valorians working together, each bringing their own strengths. It felt right somehow, but there was a problem. We need someone to coordinate from orbit, said Miri. Someone who can see the whole planet and direct the shield placement. I'll do it, said Jisoo suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. I'll go up to your ship, she said to June. I can be your link to the humans on the ground. It's dangerous, warned June. No human has ever been in space before. Someone has to be first, said Jisoo simply. 5 days later, Jisoo stood on the bridge of Captain Jun's ship, looking down at Earth through the viewing screen. It was the most beautiful and fragile thing she had ever seen. The Krozak flare has begun, reported Miri from her station. Impact in 12 hours. Around the planet, 20 shield generators had been positioned. Some were from the crashed Valorian ship. Others were built by humans using Valorian designs. Each one needed to be activated at exactly the right moment as the flare hit the atmosphere. All teams report ready, said June. He turned to Jisoo. It's time to begin the countdown. Jisoo took a deep breath and spoke into the communication device. Her voice would be heard by the Valorian ships and by human radio operators at each shield location. This is Jisoo. Begin final preparations. Shield activation in 11 hours, 50 minutes. For the next several hours, Jisoo coordinated between the Valorian sensors and the human teams. They made final adjustments to shield positions. They double-checked power sources. They prepared for every possible problem. Then Miri called out, "Energy surge. The flare is accelerating. Impact in 30 minutes, not 6 hours. The Krozak must have detected our preparations," said Jun grimly. "They've increased the flare's speed." Jisoo felt panic rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. "New plan," she said firmly. "Tell all teams to activate on my mark, regardless of position." "Some shields aren't ready," warned Jun. "The coverage will have gaps." "Better than no coverage," said Jisoo. She spoke into the communicator again. "All teams. Emergency activation. Stand by." As the deadly flare raced toward Earth, Jisoo watched the status of each shield team. Most reported ready, but 3 key locations were silent. "The Southern Atlantic team isn't responding," reported an officer, "nor the Eastern Pacific or Northern Asia." "Those are critical gaps," said Miri. "The shield won't hold without them." Jisoo made a quick decision. "Captain Jun, can your ships move to cover those gaps?" "Yes, but we would be directly exposed to the flare. The damage would be severe. But you would survive." Jun hesitated. "Probably. But—" "Then do it," said Jisoo. "Please." Jun looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All ships, move to cover shield gaps. Prepare for direct flare exposure." The 3 Valorian ships, including the command vessel where Jisoo stood, moved to positions around Earth. On the viewing screen, Jisoo could see the flare approaching, a wall of deadly energy that made the earlier one look tiny. "All shields ready," reported Miri. "Impact in 60 seconds." Jisoo closed her eyes briefly, thinking of everyone she knew on the planet below. Then she opened them and gave the command, "Activate all shields now." Around the planet, humans and Valorians worked together. They activated the shield generators. They routed power from every available source. The 3 Valorian ships extended their own shields to maximum. The flare hit. The ship shook violently. Warning alarms blared. Jisoo held onto a railing to keep from falling. Shield holding at 80%, called Miri over the noise. 70%. 60. Divert emergency power to shields, ordered June. 50%. 40. Jisoo watched the numbers drop, knowing that when they reached 0, Earth would be exposed to the full force of the flare. Everyone she had ever known would die. But then, something unexpected happened. The numbers stopped falling. Shield stable at 35%, reported Miri in disbelief. The flare is weakening faster than predicted. June turned to Jisoo with all 4 eyes wide. Your planet is fighting back. Your magnetic field is stronger than our models showed. For an agonizing hour, they watched as the flare battered the combined shields. But the shields held. Earth survived. 2 months later, Jisoo stood with Captain June and High Commander Ren in a field outside Seoul. The snow was melting. Green shoots pushed through the soil. Earth was healing. "The Valorian Council has made their decision," said Ren formally. "Earth is recognized as a protected world. The Krozak have been warned against further interference." "And what about our interference?" asked June. "Our actions were defensive only," said Ren, "and they revealed something important. Humans are ready for contact earlier than we thought." Jisoo looked at the first diplomatic meeting taking place nearby. Dr. Taho Kim and Mayor Sungmin were showing Valorian representatives how humans had survived the crisis. Du Yun was deep in conversation with Valorian engineers about combining their technologies. "What happens now?" Jisoo asked. "Now we learn from each other," said June. "Your people show remarkable adaptability, courage, and cooperation without a collective consciousness. These are qualities my people once had, but have forgotten. And your technology can help us rebuild," said Jisoo. "Together, we're stronger than either of us alone." Above them, the sky was clear and blue. No sign remained of the flare that had nearly ended human civilization. But humanity had changed forever. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they had proven themselves worthy of survival in the eyes of the stars.